The afternoon in Cedar Ridge, Ohio, was so hot that the asphalt seemed to tremble under the sunlight. A little girl stood alone on the sidewalk, holding tightly a piece of cardboard with curled edges. The shaky marker read, "For sale, $25. Next to her was a pink bicycle with a white basket and a frayed silver ribbon fluttering in the wind. Its wheel stopped at a small crack on the pavement. "Mister, would you buy my bicycle?" Her voice was so soft that even the wind passing by almost carried it away. Right in front of her, 4 motorcycles had just turned off their engines. The sound of the V-twin engines still lingered in the air like the echo of a storm that had passed. The leather-jacketed men of the Silver Comets removed their gloves and pushed their sunglasses up. Around them, the curtains of nearby houses moved slightly. A few faces glanced out and then disappeared behind the glass. The front man knelt down to her eye level. He had gentle brown eyes and a thin scar across his left cheekbone. "What's your name?" "Ava," the little girl answered, then glanced toward the oak tree at the end of the lawn. There, a thin woman sat leaning against the trunk, a light jacket draped over her shoulders despite the heat. "My mom is Lauren. She hasn't eaten in 2 days." A dry leaf fell into the bicycle basket and bounced lightly. The man swallowed hard, his eyes lowered. Behind him, his 3 brothers stood silent, as if they all heard a faint, fragile cry beneath all the sounds of engines and dust. If you believe that just one kind decision can change an entire dark day. Like and subscribe to Kindness Stories 365 right now, so this story can reach someone who needs hope. Ava was 6 years old, loved sticking paper stars on the corner of the refrigerator, and would only sleep when her teddy bear, Mr. Peanut, lay on her left side. In their second-floor apartment, every night Lauren Hayes, her mother, would read stories in a calm voice, surrounded by the faint scent of cinnamon left on the kitchen shelf. Lauren, 41, used to be a sous chef at Mercer Events, the largest catering company in town. She knew the ratio of flour, sugar, and butter, as well as she knew the names of the streets around her home. The day the company downsized, Lauren received an envelope stamped "Restructuring." Her boss, Daniel Mercer, smiled in magazines as he talked about optimization for a sustainable future. In the company kitchen, Lauren untied her apron, washed the knife clean, and hid her trembling hands in her pockets. In the weeks that followed, she knocked on the doors of restaurants. "Leave your resume," everyone said. No one called back. Rent bills piled up, and the refrigerator grew emptier. Lauren drank warm water to fool her hunger, pushing her small portion of food to Ava. At night, she opened her recipe notebook and stared at the line that read, "Pumpkin soup, add nutmeg." Nate Walker, 46, nicknamed Stone, was the man who had knelt before Ava. He used to be a mechanic, familiar with the smell of gasoline and the sound of a wrench hitting metal. His small house on the edge of town had an old maple tree and a photo of his son on the shelf. Some nights, he rode his motorcycle all night just to quiet the noise in his head, the noise of an old accident he always blamed himself for. Silver Comets was his second family. Jax, Ty, Miguel, men who had learned to remove their helmets when passing a funeral and to stay silent at the right time. Nate wasn't good with fancy words, but sometimes he understood very quickly. Some things simply can't be left by the roadside. "Mister, you can pay less if you want," Ava said, her small hands pressing tightly on the edge of the cardboard. "I just need enough to buy milk and bread for my mom." Jax shifted his weight onto his boots. Ty glanced down the silent street. Miguel clicked his tongue softly, his eyes falling on the woman under the oak tree. Lauren was quietly holding her stomach, her lips cracked. She didn't look directly at them, as if afraid that someone's gaze might touch the pride she was trying to hold on to. Nate walked over, sitting lower on the grass, keeping a respectful distance. "What do you need most right now?" "Work," Lauren replied, her voice small but firm, "and a few days to stand back up." The answer hit like a nail straight into the heart. Not money, not help, but to be able to work. Nate took out his wallet and quickly counted the money he had. He placed it into Ava's hand. "Keep it, and keep your bike." The tiny hand trembled for a moment, then closed. Ava looked up at her mother. Lauren nodded, and for the first time that day, her eyes softened. Money might ease tonight's hunger, but not tomorrow's. At the corner of the street, Mercer Events' billboard gleamed with a cold slogan, "Crafting unforgettable moments." Those unforgettable moments of people in suits had never smelled of gasoline mixed with sweat on a hot sidewalk. Nate stood up, adjusting his jacket. He looked at his 3 brothers. One look was enough for them to understand. No talking. No hesitation. There was only one direction, toward the glass building where optimization decisions had turned a child's dinner into an item on a $25 piece of cardboard. Ava watched them go, hugging her handlebars. Inside the basket, Mr. Peanut tilted his head, as if listening to a vague promise carried away by the wind. Lauren closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The 2 of them didn't know what would happen, only that someone had chosen to stand with them. The lobby of Mercer Events was cold and clean, to the point that the sound of boots seemed to be absorbed into the air. The scent of citrus oil, soft piano music, and perfect wedding photos lined the hallway. Silver Comets walked through like bold strokes on a painting that was too smooth. The receptionist looked up. Leather jackets, tattoos, half helmets, but the eyes of the 4 men were gentle and steady. "We want to see Daniel Mercer," Nate said. "Now." The glass door opened. Daniel Mercer appeared, navy blue suit, a presidential fold pocket square, a restrained but timed smile. He observed the 4 men in front of him as if through a microscope. "How can I help you?" Nate didn't go in circles. He placed the cardboard sign "For Sale," $25 on the glass desk. The shaky marker looked like a scratch on a perfect advertisement. "Do you know that a little girl had to price her childhood at $25? Daniel frowned. He began his familiar speech about market downturns, cost structure, and responsibility to shareholders. Each phrase fell like marbles rolling on the glass table, clattering together but never touching the ground. "Ava Hayes," Nate said, his voice steady as a motorcycle heading straight. 6 years old. Lauren, her mother, worked as a cook in your company, just got laid off. For 2 days, she's given all her food to her daughter. This morning, Ava cleaned her pink bike and stood on the street. A woman standing in the corner, Rachel Ung, head of human resources, froze when she saw the sign. "We still have the transition fund," she said, "but it's been closed for review for 3 weeks. The silence was like the moment before the rain. Daniel touched the edge of the cardboard, his eyes leaving Nate's rugged face to stop on the uneven letters of a child's handwriting. Outside, through the glass wall, a few employees had stopped. Someone lifted a phone. Messages traveled faster than words. Nate lowered his voice. "We didn't come to cause trouble or to buy anything with a few dollars. We came to remind you of the slogans hanging on these walls. No threats, no harsh tones, only truth, placed beside a piece of cardboard." Daniel exhaled, as if pulling a nail from his chest that he hadn't known was there. He looked at Rachel. "Reopen the transition fund. Provide immediate essentials to affected families. Contact Lauren Hayes today. I want to meet her. He turned to Nate. I can't buy forgiveness, but I can start doing what's right. Nate nodded, lifted the sign from the desk, then, as if thinking again, placed it back down. Keep it. So when you sign your next decision, it'll sting your hand a little. As Silver Comets walked out, the lobby fell silent. No one applauded, no one whistled. Only glances, at first doubtful, then warmer, followed the four men as they left that cold silver space. The summer evening softened over the small park at the end of the street. Sunlight flowed through the trees, scattering gold over the wooden bench where Lauren sat. In her hands was a cup of hot pumpkin soup with the scent of nutmeg, something someone had just sent. Ava rode her bicycle in circles, laughing every time the silver ribbon fluttered. A silver SUV stopped nearby. Rachel Ung stepped out, carrying 2 cardboard boxes, rice, milk, canned food, and vegetables. She didn't smile like in an advertisement. She simply said, "Hello, Lauren. I'm from Mercer Events. The transition fund has been reopened. And, if you'd like, this weekend the company's community kitchen needs someone to manage the soup line." Lauren touched the edge of the box. Tears suddenly welled up, quiet, not dramatic. They were the kind of tears that come when your body realizes you no longer have to fight alone. "I'd love to," she said, then smiled, a smile she hadn't felt in months. At the end of the park, Silver Comets parked their motorcycles side by side. Jax nudged Ty. "If you make soup, don't add chili this time." Miguel smiled quietly. Nate stood still, watching Ava ride round and round, her little sandals tapping lightly on the pedals. A figure approached from down the street. Daniel Mercer. No entourage. In his hand was the "For Sale" $25 sign. He stood before Lauren, close enough to hear her breath, far enough to show respect. "Miss Hayes, I'm sorry. Today we reactivated the fund, and if you're willing, I'd like you to advise the menu for the community kitchen so that the meals have real flavor. Not just a budget line." Lauren looked at the sign in his hand. "I don't need anyone to apologize for an entire system," she said calmly. "But I'm ready to do good work, if you're ready to keep your word." Daniel nodded. Perhaps for the first time in months, his forehead eased. The sunset fell over the chrome exhaust pipes. Nate bent down, sticking a small silver star sticker onto Ava's basket. "For good luck," he said, "and to remember that sometimes we feel lighter not because we let go, but because we lift someone else." Ava hugged him quickly, as if hugging the scent of leather, sunlight, and gasoline. "Uncle Nate, thank you. This story is not about motorcycles or glass buildings. It's about the moment a child decided to save her mother by selling what she loved most, and the moment an adult decided to turn back when he realized that a piece of cardboard could weigh more than a balance sheet. Kindness isn't always loud. It can be a stop in the middle of a hot day, a cup of hot soup placed in shaking hands, a reopened support fund, a promise tied from a sidewalk to a meeting room. The world rarely changes color in just one day, but the human heart can shift a few millimeters. And that small shift opens the door for the light to come in. If you ever wonder what an ordinary person can do against cold decisions, remember Ava and that $25 sign. Kindness isn't measured by money, but by the courage to stand beside someone when they need it most. If the story of Ava, Lauren, Nate touched you, take a moment to like and subscribe to Kindness Stories 365, so that every night a light of kindness is lit somewhere in the world. And what about you? If you were Nate, what would you do when you saw the "For Sale $25" sign on that burning sidewalk? Tell us in the comments. Who knows, your idea might become a warm meal for someone tomorrow. Click share. so this story can reach someone who needs one more reason to believe in kindness.